I am Nicci, Radhe. I am the social media content creator for TOG. I've been on the board for 2 years. And about 2 years ago, I started my seed company, Horny Toad Horticulture. And it has been, I started doing seeds 5 years ago, but I didn't actually start the business until about 2 years ago. So for the past 2 years, I've just literally spent every extra moment of my free time working with seeds, and I'm really excited to just share that with you all tonight. So let's just get right into it. My photographer, Amy Eichems, is amazing, by the way. We are losing bugs at a scale that we've never seen before. Do you remember 20 years ago when you would drive down the freeway and your windshield would be so dirty, you had to stop and clean it at a gas station? That doesn't happen anymore because we're losing our bug populations. So for sustainability, my first thing was go all organic, get rid of pesticides. I started composting. Now my house produces 1 bag of trash a week. Rainwater harvesting was a big one because my husband was very upset about the water bill. But also we have huge areas of roofs that we could use for that. So recycling, I use tons of recycled stuff. I try to just reuse every single thing I can for planting and reducing. So if I do buy new things sometimes, but I really try to get most of my stuff from thrift shops and plant stands and stuff like that. I also try to buy in bulk to reduce my plastic waste because, you know, perlite and coco coir and all these things come in bags, which is unfortunate, but it's kind of how we have to do. And then I started really regenerating the soil in my ground, which took a lot of work and a lot of digging and a lot of digging bars. And I wish I had a little baby tractor, like that's next on my Christmas wish list. And then making basins for rainwater collection. And I use every single space of shade in my yard to grow things because I realized very quickly that the sun here in Tucson is different from the rest of the world for some reason. The benefits of rewilding for me has been that I have seen so much wildlife. Just today, I saw a cardinal for the first time. I have a coach whip snake that has been living in my place for 3 years. They're really cool. I see so many bugs. I have 3 different types of amphibians, which are all endangered right now, living in my space. I have Sonoran toads, I have spadefoot toads, and I have this little toad called a narrow-mouthed toad. And I posted a picture of the narrow-mouthed toad on my Instagram, and the gentleman from the Herpetological Society hit me up and was like, can we please come study this toad because they are endangered and they're never found where you live. And I'm like, yes, this is a win. Like, this is what I wanted. But I see wildlife every day. We've named them. I got a squirrel named Chungus. I've got a squirrel named Chungus too, because I can't tell the difference between them. My soil is crawling. When you put your hands in my soil, it's gross. I mean, it crawls. The soil crawls on you. I've got isopods and worms. I've got a worm bin. And I think that all of this stuff is really, really important, and it's really enhanced my life. And I think that it could help a lot of other people. Native wildflowers just start spawning now. Things I've never planted, I've never seen. They're just like, hello, I've lived here for 10 years and now I can bloom. Your property will be cooler, and it'll be shadier, it'll be cooler, and your neighbors will be super jealous. That's the most important part about rewilding your yard. I'm joking, but it is pretty cool to see all of these bugs and everything. So I am a seed lady first and foremost. Seeds are really important to me, and the area that I live in has been continuously cultivated for 4,000 years. There's not a lot of places in the US where people have lived continuously and farmed continuously for that long. So the place I live is the lands of the Hohokam, the Tohono O'odham, and the Pima tribes. And that to me is really important. And when I talk about seeds and when I grow seeds, I cannot help but think about every person who came before me and grew on that land, because I am not the first. And I hopefully will not be the last. Seeds will connect you to your place. It will connect you to your home. It will connect you to the past people. It will connect you to future generations, and it'll help you connect to yourself. As you learn about seeds and learn about their lifespan and the way that they germinate and the way that they spread, it's really fascinating. And to me, I could seed all day. Growing plants from seeds really helps connect us to our own nature, and it helps connect us to traditional ways. For 99% of our history, we all grew plants, especially women. Women were so important in growing and cultivating and choosing plants. And I think of amaranth as a really important example. When colonization was happening in this country, it was illegal for Native American women to grow a lot of their staple crops. It was completely illegal, but they did it anyways. They grew amaranth and they cultivated amaranth and they shared seeds and they traded seeds in secret. And that is rebellion, and that is really cool to me. And there's a million stories like amaranth, but amaranth is one of my favorite ones because now we have such a beautiful wide variety of amaranth. And it's one of my favorite things to grow because it's beautiful and it has a rich history. But that's another cool thing about seeds is like when you learn about the plants that you're growing, you learn about the history of those plants. And I think that that's an important part about cultivating. Why grow from seed when you could just go buy plants? There are definitely some plants you should buy. But growing from seed, you can grow organically. I didn't realize this, but when I was taking home my little Bonnie containers from Home Depot, there's Miracle-Gro in them and other pesticides and other things that I didn't even realize I was introducing into my garden. And if I never thought organically in my life, so it was something that I didn't, once I realized it, I was like, oh, duh. Like, another thing is a lot of plants and seeds at big box stores are sold out of season. And they're sold not only out of season, but out of place. The same plants are sent to all these places and they don't do well in all these places. So there's a lot of plants at the big box stores that I wouldn't buy. And there's a lot of plants I wish were at the bigger box stores. So you can grow food you can't find at grocery stores. This is a picture of me with dragon tail radish. That is one of my favorite things to grow because it is this delicious seed pod. Instead of eating the root like regular radish, you eat the seed pod. And it tastes kind of like wasabi. So like I'll put it in salads or stir fries. But you can't find that at restaurants or grocery stores. You can find it at Baker Creek, though. Baker Creek seed. Those are called dragon tail radish. They're also called rat tail radish. They grow them in the South, and they're called rat tail radish. And they're beautiful. They have beautiful flowers, which are also edible. And they're really, really fun to grow. So if you've never grown those, but that's just one example. There's so many varieties of lettuces and kales and, I mean, everything. The variety, the diversity of food that you can grow when you grow from seed is amazing. It's way cheaper. A plant costs $4 and a pack of seeds costs $4, but you can grow 40 plants. So you can learn more about each individual plant because you're watching it grow from seed to harvest. And you really get to know that plant intimately. You get to know its life cycle. You get to know how to cultivate it. You get to know how to harvest it. And once you know, like you can't unknow. Like that information is in there forever. You'll learn to discern different seedlings. This has come in handy a lot of times, especially like in spring when everything starts popping up and you're like, oh, what is that? Is good guy or bad guy? I know, I can tell you what these seedlings are because I watch them grow all day. Your plants will produce seeds that are more adapted to this climate. That is really important. So it takes millennia for plants to evolve, but it only takes one season for them to adapt. In a single season, a plant will be better suited for its environment, which is really cool. You can experiment. So when I grow artichokes, I don't just plant one, I plant 500, which is why I still have a whole bunch left over. And then what I do is I put them in different spaces, different microclimates. I put them in different containers. I use different soil mediums sometimes just to see what those plants like. And it's really cool because I'm never unsuccessful because one of them is going to take off. What seeds should I buy? I think you should buy any seeds you can get your hands on, but the best seeds are seeds that you can get for free, seeds that you can harvest yourself. I literally will be in the Costco parking lot picking red yucca seeds, or in the Fry's parking lot picking moringa tree seeds, and people think I'm crazy, and I am, and I'm okay with it. Because I have red yucca and moringa seeds now that we're just gonna, I don't even know, they're just gonna go to the floor. The more local seeds, buy seeds from anywhere. There's big store brands I like, or big national brands like True Leaf Market. Baker Creek is an amazing company, and they do a lot of really cool environmental stuff. But these are my favorite local seed companies. Native Seed Search is one of the best organizations in this entire state. And it's actually one of the only seed organizations in this entire region that not only helps Native American farmers and gives them heirloom seeds, and gives back to the community, but then they save those seeds in their huge walk-in freezers. So I got to volunteer for them a few times, and I learned so much seed stuff. This is one of the coolest organizations. So I spend most of my money there. I spend a lot of money there. Westwind Seeds is really cool. Reggie Smith is a woman who has given a really cool seed talk to us before when we were on the other side of the church. And she has 200 varieties of seeds that she's been growing here in the desert for 20 years. She does only online sales. There's no store or anything like that. But those seeds are amazing, and Reggie's business is supreme. Reggie is so cool. Borderlands Plants is a really cool place that I really like to support, because they have a restoration network where they're restoring the Borderlands wild native plants. And in doing so, they're collecting seeds and selling them to fundraise for their organization, which is really cool. The Native Seed Company is another great seed company, and you can find a lot of those seeds in like places like Harlow Gardens or Four Arrows Nursery. And then there's actually a couple more local seed companies that I found out about, and I printed a list and I left it on my printer, so I don't have that list with me. But if you go to the U of A Cooperative Extension website, you can find a list of all the local seed growers. And I think there's about 10 local seed companies, which is really, really cool. So if you could buy local seeds, that is the best thing to do, because those seeds are already adapted. What crop should I choose? This one's really easy. The seed library. The seed library is amazing, and all the free plant and seed stands are also really amazing. I say the cheapest, freest seeds you can get are the best. And the most important thing is that you buy or pick seeds that you are going to eat. If you're growing food, you want to grow things that you're going to eat. You don't want to grow things that you don't like. Yeah, yeah. Oh, that gentleman said that a lot of the seeds at the library were also locally grown and produced, which is really important. Native, so I don't only grow native seeds, but I always grow native seeds. So if I have ornamental stuff or stuff that isn't native, I always put native stuff in with it, because it's kind of up to us backyard gardeners right now to help rewild the urban landscape and support the pollinators on their long, long, long journeys, because they need all the support they can get right now. So native is always best. A lot of insects co-evolve with plants. And if you bring in a lily from Hawaii, the insects here aren't going to eat it. It's beautiful, and I love lilies, and I have lilies, but I have lilies and native stuff. I have my Pella Verdes and my cacti and my succulents and all the stuff that's native, but you have to have native stuff in with your ornamentals, because you want to support the wildlife. Also, they're cheaper to water and take care of because they're more arid adapted. Non-invasive species. So I started this talk tonight by telling everybody in the world that I planted Bermuda grass. Don't do that. Don't do that. I fight it every day. And it's really hard to know what is invasive or not. So I always look up seeds before I plant them, and I always try to find information on them. There's people in my neighborhood who grow, or around the corner on the way to my son's school, who grow African daisies. A lot of plants that come from Africa are invasive here because it's very similar climate, but guess what? There's no predators here. There's no, a lot of them outperform the native species. So, yeah, if you can not plant invasive species, that'd be great. And try new things like the dragon tail radish. I never even ate radishes in my life. And I planted this thing and I was like, oh, now I like radishes. So, and then come to talk to your local gardeners, see what they're planting. So choose seeds you're going to love, you're going to eat, you're going to use, and you're going to share. Keystone species. So the keystone species are some of the best plants that you can plant in this region. And keystone species are really, really, really important. Those are species that if something happens to that species, the whole food web unravels a little. And if that species were to go extinct, there would be big problems down the road. I grow a lot of the keystone species here. So the common sunflower is like that sunflower you see on the highway. They have tiny little seeds. Globe mallow, everybody here probably knows that. The daisies I had never even heard of until I made this PowerPoint presentation. And then the blanket flower firewheel. Those are amazing flowers because they're very arid adapted. They have tons of nectar. I saw a hummingbird at one today. And they don't have a lot of pests or diseases. So keystone species are really, really important. That's a list of flowers that are keystone species. And on the side is a list of trees. And you can find this at homegrownnationalpark.org, which is a really cool website. I put my house on there because I want to continue to plant the keystone species. So you can go and look at a map of the US on that website, and you can see everybody who is planting the keystone species in their area. And it's super inspiring and uplifting. What materials do you need to start your seeds? So if you're starting in season, like right now, you don't need to start indoors and do all that. You can literally start seeds in anything. You can do it anywhere. This is my favorite way to start seeds. Even if I'm going to be growing in ground, I always start my seeds in trays because it helps me keep track of them. Sometimes for bigger seeds, I'll use the bigger pots because they grow so quickly that they grow out of this before I can blink, and I don't have time to transplant them. Recycle. So containers, yogurt cups, all that. You can use anything. The plastic party cups, but they need holes in the bottom because nothing's going to grow in this. It's going to become anaerobic. Anaerobic? Yeah. Peat pots suck in the desert. I've had these for 3 years. I don't use them. I bring them to show you that these are expensive and they're stupid. And they're stupid because it is too dry here. These are probably great in the Midwest. They're probably great in Florida. I bet you they're amazing in South America. They are terrible here. The only way you can use these peat pots and be very successful is if you put them inside a tray and keep them completely soaked the entire time. But yeah, so if you're starting in season, you just need seed, soil, and container. That's it. It's so simple. If you're starting out of season, you need 3 extra things. You need light, you need fans, and you need space. And I realized this the first time I transplanted a 72-cell seed tray. I needed to find space inside my house for 72 plants. So I turned my kitchen upside down, and my husband loved that. Do you have a question? Oh yeah, people use newspaper, people use toilet paper and paper towel rolls. These Yeah, if you take it out of the can, yeah. Oh, yes. So she said that a lot of people use newspaper and they'll use a can and put the newspaper in, and then you use the whole news. That is brilliant. I would do that. That's not like a peat pot that's going to dry your plant out. That would actually keep your plant a lot more moist. People use toilet paper rolls and stuff. That's great. I don't have time to sit around and cut and trim and do all the things you need to do. But I do use literally anything that's free and available. And I go to tons of like free plant stands, and I will plant in anything. Ask my husband. But light, if you're planting out of season, so like right now I'm doing all my seedlings outdoors. I don't really need any special equipment or anything. But in the summer, when it's super hot, it's actually too hot for a lot of seeds to even germinate. Thank you so much. It's actually even too hot for seeds to germinate. So what I do is during the summer, like peak summer, like June, I will grow seeds indoors. And if you're growing seeds indoors, you need light and fan. If you know, light is as powerful as the sun, so you're never going to get a light that's as good as the sun. But no plant wants to be in our sun in 117-degree weather. And it doesn't matter what plant it is. I'm sorry. It's just getting really, really hot. So the 2 times a year I will grow out of season and use lights and fans and all that is summer and winter when it's freezing. Those are the 2 times. If you don't want to do that, you don't have to. And you can just start seeds directly into the ground. Do you have a question? Point of the fans. This is very important. What's the point of the fans? If you take a seedling that has never had any kind of exercise, is what the way I don't think of it as trauma. I think of it as exercise. If the plants never have wind, they never get strong, and the minute you put them outside, they will literally keel over and die. They will go into shock. So the fan is actually to make them strong at their core, which is really weird if you think about it, but it works. And I've made so many mistakes before I knew about lights and fans. I'd get these long, leggy seedlings that were like this long, trying to reach the window, had no exercise or support at all, and they died every time I put them out. That was a really good question. And the lights are great, and you need something that's at least 1,500 lumens, but you don't have to buy a special grow light that says it's a grow light for plants. In fact, if you buy a grow light for plants, you're going to pay double. Just give your indoor plants as much light as you can while they're growing. These seedling trays come with domes, plastic domes. And I use them for the first like 3 to 4 days. But the minute the seedlings pop up, you have to take the dome off to give them wind. Because if you keep them in this dome, they're going to think they're living in Panama. And when you put them in the desert, they're going to be mad. So right now you can just start seeds right outside. You can just start seeds right in trays. But when we get to the end of May and for all of June, and actually last year, July was awful. I didn't plant anything outdoors. June, July, and July used to be really good because we'd start getting rain around like the 4th or 5th or something. Now, I think last year we had our first monsoon in August. Yeah. So this year, to save money and time and heartbreak, I am not going to plant anything for those 2 months. I will be growing stuff indoors. I will be starting my seedlings. But I think, yeah. I don't know. I went through that. Here's another thing though. No. What I did was I skipped ahead of myself and started talking about containers. That's okay. I use a lot of these too. If I have extra egg containers, even the recycled egg containers, those work really well too. And Desert Survivors. If you've never been to Desert Survivors, they have a huge bin that you can dig through and take home anything you want. So when I sell plants, it's mostly recycled stuff that I don't really buy pots anymore. I just go to Desert Survivors and take all their free stuff. Avoid peat pots in the desert. We talked about peat pots, but we didn't talk about peat moss. When I first started gardening, another terrible thing I did was buy really, really big, expensive bags of peat moss. And peat moss is not a very renewable resource. It's not sustainably harvested, and it doesn't hold moisture the way we need it to for this arid place that we live. So I haven't bought peat moss in 2 years, and I use coco coir for everything. Coco coir is an amendment that'll help rehydrate your soil and keep that hydration in there. So yeah, coco coir, yeah, it's from coconuts, yeah. So EcoGrow sells coco coir. They have a company in Sri Lanka, and I buy most of my coco coir from them. So it's an amendment. What do I use peat moss for? So it's an amendment, and what I do is I mix it in with my soil. I make my own soil mix, and I mix it in with my soil, and it's supposed to hold the moisture. Have you ever had a plant from like Home Depot that like you forgot to water and it was still in its little cup, and you pull it out and it's just like this solid block? That's peat moss. It doesn't even rehydrate. If you water it, the water goes straight through the container. If that was coco coir, it would rehydrate and the plant would come back to life. Peat moss is not very sustainable, and I learned about that again way too late after buying probably hundreds of dollars worth of it, but I don't do that anymore. So now we're talking about mediums. You can grow seeds out of anything. This is what's really cool about seeds. They do not need compost, they do not need fertilizer, they do not need any nutrients. Seeds come complete with their own little pack lunch, like their mama sent them to school. Like this is why seeds are so nutritious to eat, because they already have everything they need to grow. You don't need to fertilize them or anything. Once they turn into seedlings, then they need some sustenance because they're teenagers now and they eat. But you can grow out of straight coco coir. You don't even need to mix it. You can grow straight out of compost if you want, although it has to be hydrated. It can't be, a lot of compost gets hydrophobic here in the desert, so it has to be really moist. And you can just use regular potting mix. Don't buy the $8 bags of Jiffy starting mix, because it's literally just a smaller bag of peat moss that they're selling for the same price. It's a scam. Don't do that. The best thing to do is whatever you use, make sure it's super fine and light and fluffy, because seedlings do not like a lot of resistance until you give them the fan. Then they like that. But if there's big sticks and stones and stuff in your soil mix, the seedlings might struggle to pop up. So the lightest, so what I'll do is if I'm using a potting mix, which I always use a potting mix, and I just strain it with my sifter, and I just make a really light, fluffy mix. But don't go buy the bag seed starting mixes, because they're gonna waste your money completely. Yeah. So that's another cool thing about seeds, is it doesn't really matter how you start them. Once they start growing up, then you need to give them a little amendments and love, like give them a little coco coir, perlite, compost, fertilizer. That's when you start amending, once you take them out of the tray. So when and how to transplant. This is the tricky part. All seeds are different, and generally when you're seeding in, these cells are kind of small, if you can see. So if you're growing in smaller cells, you're going to want to transplant more quickly than if you're growing in like a cup this size. The plant's going to need to be moved quicker. But you never really want to move plants until seedlings get their true leaves, which is the second set of leaves. So all seedlings have the first set. Once they get their second set, they're ready to transplant. If you move them before that, they might be fine, but most of the time they're not really ready and they're going to go into shock. Different plants take different times. If you leave your seedlings in the tray for too long, they will get stunted and they'll never actually reach their full potential, which is very sad, because I want seeds to reach their full potential. Did you have a question? Yeah. Yes, the second set of leaves. The, the just the second. Like as long as they get their second leaves, most of them are ready to transplant. I don't like to cluster seed either. Like when I started planting, I only had one tray, so I'd put like 5 seeds in each hole, and then my tomato plants would all be stunted, or whatever I was growing. If the less space you give plants to grow, the less big they will get. They will stay small. That's really important, just to know in general. Some plants do not like their roots touched at. My best example of this is cucurbits. So anything in the cucumber, melon, squash, gourd, pumpkin family. All of those things, you can buy a plant and transplant it, but those things are generally better straight into the ground. The other things that really don't like to be transplanted are a lot of native things like penstemons, wildflowers, desert marigolds. Again, if a nursery is selling a pot, it is very likely you will be fine taking that home, but it would be better if you didn't start them in little seedling trays and try to transplant them yourself. The nursery has had those growing for a long time and they have strong roots. But anytime I've tried to grow and transplant native things or cucurbits, I usually fail. Most seeds are ready within 2 to 4 weeks to transplant, but some seeds take 2 to 4 weeks to even germinate. So a lot of native things. Some native things have been some of the most difficult things for me to grow. And it's so funny to me that that is the case. But so many native things take like a month to even germinate. Question? I have seed. Oh, have I ever tried to grow creosote from seed? I have a bag of creosote seeds that I collected on a walk the other day, and I was going to try to grow them right now. But no, I haven't tried to grow creosote from seed. I imagine it's difficult. Yeah, like, yeah. Yeah, no, I imagine it's really difficult. So I'm gonna try, I'm gonna experiment. That's the cool thing about seeds. Ooh, the U of A extension has a whole document on okay, I will check that out. Has a whole document on how to plant creosote seeds. The other really, I have another bag of Ocotillo seeds, but I haven't planted them yet. So I haven't, but I'm ready. Like I want to. I bet. I bet. And there's some plants too that are better to just propagate. There's some plants that are better to just take cuttings and stuff like that from. A lot of cacti. Yeah, I was thinking Ocotillo might be better to just propagate. Um, oh yeah, Jean said she's seen people make Ocotillo fences, which I covet those fences. Like when I see those fences, I'm like, I want that. Um, the only other thing I want to say is when you're transplanting your seedlings, be really gentle. When you get those pots from the nursery and they're all root bound and you got to like rough them up and shake them up, and don't do that with your seedlings. They're not from Home Depot, they're not root bound. So when I transplant my seedlings, Karen asked me today why I carry a fork around in my overalls. This is this is why I carry, it's because I'm hungry all the time. This is why I carry a fork around. I use the fork to take my seedlings out of the seedling tray because it doesn't hurt the roots and it grabs the entire thing, and then I can put it in my pot or the ground or whatever I'm doing with it. So another cool thing to recycle and just keep around. When do I harvest and save my seeds? So most seeds are best to leave to dry on the vine. So when seed pods get brown, or like before they split, because it's always a race when I'm like out trying to harvest seeds when plants are ready at different times. But like you want to let the seeds dry on the plant, because if you take them off too early, they're not going to be mature, or and you're going to waste your whole, it's just, it's a waste if you do that. So let the seeds dry on the plant and then harvest. I always use like paper bags. I brought one of the mesh bags, but it's probably with my junk outside. Sometimes, you know, the fruit bags that people put over like tomatoes and pomegranates, I'll put that over my seeds. Yes, yes. Those jewelry, the little jewelry bags, the mesh bags. I love that you just have one like in your pocket. I'm surprised I don't. So that's another great thing to do. Sunflower heads, I'll put a paper bag around the sunflower heads. And then there's a couple different types of seeds. Some of them are wet and some of them are dry. The wet seeds you actually have to ferment. So melons, cucumbers, pumpkins, tomatoes, You take all the seeds out of the fruit and you actually let them sit on a bowl on your kitchen counter, which your family is going to love because then it smells like stinky melon or whatever you're fermenting. And what happens is the water, they all have a gelatin around the seed that protects the seed from sprouting inside the fruit. That fermentation process breaks down that gelatin so that the seed can just dry. So what I'll do is I'll ferment it for a couple days. Try to remember so it doesn't grow mold and get disgusting because then it ruins all my seeds. And then I'll clean them with a strainer and get all of the fruit, like the pulp, whether it's pumpkin or melon. I think a cantaloupe because I have a bowl of cantaloupe sitting on my counter right now. It's kind of grossing me out. But yeah, so tomatoes, anything like that, you have to ferment them and then you strain them and then you have to dry them for a couple days. And I never put seeds in plastic bags until they've been dried for weeks because I've had seeds that I thought were dry and they weren't, and I have mold. And then everything's ruined. When you store them, keep them in a dark, cool place. You don't have to have like a special walk-in freezer like Native Seed Search, but you could put them in like the coolest, driest place, darkest place possible. That'd be great. So like a garage, might not be cool, but it'll at least be dark and like away from critters. You can also freeze seeds if you have, and you should freeze seeds if you want to stratify them. A lot of seeds need a freezing period in order to even germinate. So if you've had trouble with wildflower seeds, it might be that they never went through a freeze, especially if we had a winter like we did last winter. It only froze a couple times at my house. And it might not have frozen in certain places. So that would be a great thing. Or apple seeds, fruit tree seeds. They need to freeze in order to signal them to germinate, which is super fascinating to me that like that's built into their DNA. Milkweeds. Oh, so milkweeds need a month of freezer time. Okay. Okay, I would just go for a month and but yeah, I think they say that apple seeds need about 2 weeks of freezing. So that's called stratifying, and that's really important to do for a lot of seeds. So freezing is not a bad idea. The most important things not to forget are learning about cross-pollination. I didn't realize this when I first started growing, but if I'm growing 8 different kinds of tomatoes, they're going to cross-pollinate. And the seeds that I save from those tomatoes are not going to be like the parent plants. They're going to be like a baby of those parent plants. Which is cool, and there's nothing wrong with that. I can't do that because I'm selling my seeds. So I can only grow one crop at a time and have to rotate them. Otherwise, they'll cross-pollinate. Label everything, and I could just do a whole class about this because it's so important. I have lost so many labels or forgotten to label stuff. I will label on these seed trays for every single cell, and I always date everything. It's really important to put a date because you will forget when you planted them and you're like, oh man, I don't even know how long these seedlings have been in this tray. Another thing I do in addition to dating is I keep a journal. And in this journal, I write down August, 13th, I planted this, this, and this. Or the other thing I'll do that's been really helpful, and I've never seen anyone else do this, but I do it because I've lost so many plant labels outside. I'll do a diagram of my garden and keep this indoors. Yes, soul sister. Keep a diagram of, yeah, yours are pretty. I will keep a diagram of my garden so that I know what I planted and where, because if you use the little stakes, they fly away, or the writing gets melted off, or whatever happens. And then the other thing with the garden journal is then you can say, this didn't germinate, or this did germinate at this date, or it's a really good idea to keep a garden journal because there's so many times that I will go back to last spring and be like, oh man, like when did I plant this certain plant or whatever? And now, I mean, we already had some questions, but I think I went over everything. There's one more thing, and it's hardening off. When you have seed trays that you've started indoors or out of season, you can't just take those plants from their happy little place inside and put them directly outside in 98-degree weather. You have to do it little by little. So if you're going from cool to hot, or if you're going from hot to cool, you need to slowly introduce those plants to their new climate. So what I do is when those seedlings are ready to transplant, I will put them outside for 4 hours one day. Then I'll put them outside for 6 the next day. Then I'll put them outside for 8 the next day. And then the third day, they're on their own. Survival of the fittest. But that's really important because when I first started growing, I would just take the plants and put them straight outside and they would die in hours. They hated that. So hardening off is really important. And it's even more important in the winter. When you're starting stuff indoors in the winter and then you're putting it out, like tomatoes and stuff, you got to like start hardening it off before you just put them to go fend for themselves. But if anyone has any questions, do I know about? No, I've never heard of the company Seed Time. What Brenda was saying was Seed Time. You can say what plant you want to grow, and they will tell you when to grow it, and all that information. That's really cool. So it's just Google Seed Time. Okay. Okay. Cool.
Um, Thank you. I've noticed that here, I come from totally different environment, but I've noticed that here, the sprouting is super quick, a lot quicker than what I was used to. Even parsley, which takes usually ages, it was shortened to 2 weeks, whereas usually back home it's almost a month.
Oh my gosh.
So it's and then the sprouting goes like crazy, and then it was blocked. I don't know if it was a wrong time. I should have used that thing. Wrong time to because I was trying to get my hands around the different growing times, and it doesn't make sense to me yet. Because for me, there's autumn, winter, spring, and summer.
Yeah.
And there's I know the times where you plant what and what kind of seeds at what time. But here with the five different, I mean, I'm
It
confused.
is so different here.
I'm confused. And then,
Yeah.
sorry, it's just it's like a running commentary, but there's also something interesting that came out from the National Weather Service. They are in the process of amending the USDA
The
zones
zones.
in order for people to better understand what's changing,
Yeah.
obviously, and this will have probably. I mean, it already has probably an effect.
That's important.
What have you noticed in terms
Yeah.
of?
That's really important. They are changing the USDA zones all around. And in my opinion, it's going to change again very soon. So I take all the zone information and trash it. Don't even pay, especially the back of the seed pack, don't even look at the zones at all. The best thing you can do with seeds is look up at what temperatures they germinate and how long they take to grow. Those are the two things I look at for seeds. So I know that I can't plant cucurbits until the soil is 50 degrees. If I try planting them at 45, they're not gonna germ. But when you're planting seeds, don't pay attention to the back of the seed pack. Actually look the seed up on the internet and find all the information you can about it. There are a lot of plants here that grow only in spring and only in fall, and they hate the summer. And if the summer wasn't so bad, they would grow all the way till winter. So that's a weird thing about here that you're going to find too, like cosmos and nasturtium. And I could probably name 50 more. Like they love the spring and they love the fall, but they hate the summer. So sometimes those plants will completely die in the summer. Sometimes they'll just look terrible for a few months and they'll come back in the fall. That happens a lot too. So I never rip out plants. And there's two reasons to never rip out plants. The two reasons are that they will come back. They can come back. They don't always come back, unfortunately. The other reason is that when you rip out a plant from the soil, you're disturbing the entire ecosystem of that soil, and you're exposing all those microbes to oxygen and light, and that's not okay. So I used to go around like a cave woman, just like ripping stuff out of the ground, and I cut everything now. I leave the root system. And here's the thing, that root system is going to go into the soil and decay and be eaten by the decomposers. So it's even adding more beneficial stuff to your soil. So don't be like me when I first started gardening. Don't rip out your plants.
So I am a failed milkweed grower.
Me too.
I can't, they will never come up. I'll get them to like do the second leaf and then done. They just fall over and die.
I can't help you.
I didn't know about the fan. So I just recently had time to actually put them in worm castings is what I use as the soil.
Yes.
Because I need to grow milkweeds from seeds.
We all do.
But I just did it on Thursday.
Okay.
So it's really out of time.
Do you have mulch on that milkweed?
So right now they're in my house. I'm doing the whole process inside because I know it's going to get too hot for them. And then I'm going to let them get to the second seed, but I can put mulch if that's what you think is going to be.
Mulch is something I didn't talk about today, but it is one of the most important things you can do from now all the way. Actually, I do it all year because what mulch does is it keeps the soil temperatures cooler in the summer and warmer in the winter. And it also keeps the moisture and the microbes happy and healthy and alive. Mulch is one of the, that's what we're missing in the desert, is a lot of our plants don't drop a lot of organic matter. So we mulch, I will have mulch this thick midsummer. I don't mess around. And it's so dry, we don't even get mold. You can't mulch like that in the Midwest. You'll get mold and fungus and all sorts of stuff. Here, it's not a big problem, but mulch those bad boys. And I've never successfully grown milkweed. In fact, the only milkweed I've been successful with is tropical milkweed. And that is a milkweed we should not be growing. And the reason we should not be growing tropical milkweed is because it grows for such a long time in this climate that it actually has a disease that is killing the monarchs on their journey. And I've seen it firsthand. So I just killed my first tropical milkweed this year. I've been growing it for 5 years, and I chunked it because I learned about this disease. I learned about how it was affecting the monarchs, and I don't want to be part of that party. That's the only milkweed I've ever been successful with. So I am with you, and I need help. I need milkweed help. So if anybody has milkweed help, I'm game. Are there any online questions? Okay. Yeah, okay. Does anyone else have any other questions?
Is EcoGrow where you found the cheapest cocoa core?
I have not found, is EcoGrow where I found, yes, I have not found any cheaper. But there's another company in town that has cocoa core, and they're called Ponvel. They're from Phoenix. They drive all the way from Phoenix to they come to our plant fair every year, and they're called Ponvel. So if you're at one of the fall or spring plant sales, he brings in loads, and last fair, he gave me like 4 bricks of it. Cocoa core is amazing. It's
Yeah,
really,
I go through a lot of it.
Yeah.
That's why
I use it a lot. So the bricks are $15 from EcoGrow, and it fills up a big like Home Depot sized tote once you like hydrate it. But that is one of the best things you can do. Also add that in with your worm castings and your milkweed. Costco. Ooh, Costco sells cocoa core. I would get down on that. Yes, it is so much better than peanuts.
In your description of your talk tonight, it says if participants have seeds to purify, please bring them. What do you mean by purify? I've never heard of that.
When I gather seeds, I have so most of us gardeners have just like bags of seeds that are mixed with like dirt and debris and husk and chaff and all that. So I'll show you outside, whoever wants to stick around for the workshop portion. My bags, you can't even see the seeds because it's full of so much junk. So that's purifying. It's just taking all the junk away from the seeds so that you just have pure seeds left. It's no magic, unfortunately. I wish I could just. Yeah, okay. I should have worded that differently. Yeah. Jean?
One year I grew cilantro
Uh-huh.
and I let it go to seed and I never got the seeds picked. They fell in the garden. And next spring when it rained, they came up all over the place and I had more cilantro than
You
I
can
could
even, yeah.
ever have gotten otherwise.
And it
so,
probably did better than your cilantro the year before.
yeah,
Yeah.
very much better.
Yeah.
So I'm going to intend to do that with various things and just let them have a mixed garden with all kinds of stuff when it comes up next year.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Nicci mentioned a lot about the free plant stands, and I am a host with the free plant stands. Our name just changed. Just to let you know, our name is now thegardenexchangestands.org, but there's business cards up there. It has our old stuff on it, but if you go to that website, it will redirect you to the new one. And there's over 40 in Tucson and over 200 statewide.
The free plant stands are really cool. Like me and my friends will just make a day of it. We'll just like get some coffee and go drive around town and see what we can. We'll take a tray of plants and seeds from our house and we'll just like drive around town and pick stuff up and drop stuff off. That's how I met you, actually. Yeah. What's the question?
The Southwest community.
Okay. Yes. Yes. The food bank also, yeah, the food bank also gives out free seeds. I think if you can get free seeds, the more money you can save, the better. I think being resourceful is fun. I don't know. I consider it a challenge sometimes. Oh,
Everybody get a raffle.
I think did everyone get a raffle ticket? Okay.
Free heirloom seeds.
No.
They're based out of California. I usually on their website. You can they give them out for free when you ask.
That's amazing. Freeheirloomseeds.org. Okay. I'm doing that tonight. Like I'm going to go home.